Well, hey there guys, and welcome back. On this week's show, a scrap wood pencil holder. Well, it was many, many years ago that my great-grandfather made me this. I was just a young boy. It was on the east coast of Canada, and he fabricated this for me out of scrap plywood. And as rustic as what this is, I absolutely love it, and I've hung on to it for many, many years, and I have it in my shop. It holds pencils. Now, I have a need for a pencil holder in my work vehicle, and I thought, why not do something like this for the show? It's a fun, quick, easy project. Kids can do it, and I thought it would be great to replicate what my great-grandfather did many years ago, but we'll do it by today's tools and standards. So let's head over to the bench and see what I've got in mind. Well, one of the first things that you want to do is you want to decide the outer diameter of your cup or your pencil holder. And in my case, I need it to be 2 3/4 of an inch in diameter. So what I've done is I have cut some scrap pieces of 1/2 inch plywood that are 1/2 inch larger than what I need for the outer diameter. So 2 3/4 plus 1/2 inch, these are 3 1/4 inches square. And I have 8 of them. Now, we can take one of them. It doesn't matter which one, take your pick, but we'll take one and just put it off to the side. We don't need that one for now. So we have 7 1/2 inch thick squares of scrap plywood, and we need to mark the center point on each one. So whether you have a center finder like this and you just mark your center point, or whether you have a fancier one, say like this, and you mark your center point, or whether you just draw a line with the ruler from corner to corner, doesn't matter. It all does the exact same thing. So mark all your center points on all of your pieces of stock. And with that being done, we now need to get a compass, and we will draw the interior dimension of our cup. Now what I'm thinking here is that on my original one that my great-grandfather made, the walls of the cup were 1/2 inch, but it was also a much larger diameter. So I want to make the walls of this cup 3/8 of an inch. So because of that, 3/8 on one side, 3/8 on the other, I need a 2 3/4 inch outer diameter. That will leave me in the center 2 inches for our cavity, or for the interior dimension of our cup. So on each one of these pieces, I need to draw a 2 inch diameter circle. And on one of your squares, you need to draw your outer diameter. There you go. So there is our 2 3/4 inch diameter drawn on there. And that is all you need to do for that one piece. And now at this point, you have a choice to make. We need to cut out each one of these circles on all 7 of our 1/2 inch thick pieces of plywood. Now you can cut them with a jigsaw, you can cut them with a scroll saw, you can use a hole saw, but whatever method you choose, cut all 7 of these inner circles out of your squares of plywood. Now, truth be told, for this operation, I actually prefer to use a hole saw. It just makes the later steps of sanding a lot less tedious and really reduces the amount of sanding that you have to do. But if you are going to use a drill press, set up a stop and your fence so that they can all be drilled at the same point on the board. And as well, I place an X in the top left corner, and I make sure that that X is always aligned while drilling. For each piece, it's always in the top left. Then when I glue them together, again, I can line them all up, and they should all be pretty close to being identical. And with that, we have all 7 of our pieces drilled out for our center dimension. Now, at this point, we need to sand them all. Whether you sand it by hand, whether you sand it by a piece of sandpaper, mount it to MDF, whether you sand it with a power sander, whatever method you choose, you just want to be careful that you're not rounding this crisp corner. You also want to make sure that you're not misshaping or losing the flatness of your plywood. So get all 7 of those pieces sanded up. So it's now time to glue all 7 of these squares together. So aligning your X, if you use that method in the hole saws, align them all in the same corner so that all your pieces will be relatively identical, and glue these all together. You just want to keep in mind that the one that you drew your outer diameter on, that is your very top piece. That is, you need to have that exposed for a step later on. So align them as best you can. It doesn't have to be 100% perfect, but do your best to line them up. It'll minimize sanding later. And just glue these together, clamp them up, and let them dry. And when you're said and done, your glue is dry, you end up with this block of plywood with a hole in the middle. Now, that hole is not perfectly aligned. I can see that, and I'm okay with that, and that's what we're going to fix up in the next step. So let's head over to the oscillating drum sander. So over at the oscillating sander, I have a sanding drum installed. Now, you want to choose a sanding drum that is one size smaller than the hole that you've got here. So this is a 2-inch, so I've installed my 1.5 inches. You don't want to go too small, because as you're trying to sand the interior, it won't give a nice even surface. You don't want to go too big because it won't fit in. So essentially what we're going to do now is sand the entire interior here until it's good and smooth and even. Now that we have the inside all evened out, it's smooth as glass in there. That feels really great. We're going to take our 1/8 square that we put aside, and we will glue it to the bottom of our cup, and we will clamp that up and let it dry, and that will end up being the base or the bottom for our entire pencil holder. You just want to make sure on this one that you clean up the squeeze out that you might get around that bottom corner as best you can. Clean it up and make it nice and purty. Well, now it's time to shape our outer diameter. Now, I had you draw the circle on there earlier, but we can see here, or hopefully you can see, that through the sanding and through evening and leveling out the inside, it's gone a little out of whack. So if I shape it like this, I'm going to end up with a very crooked cup. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to measure from the one edge here at 3/8 of an inch. We know that that's the measurement that we want the thickness of the walls to be. And I'm just going to use my finger against here as a fence. And we're just going to draw all the way around, just like this, to get our 3/8 of an inch walls. There we go. It's not perfect, but it'll do. And with this, we're going to head over to the bandsaw now. So what we want to do is we want to take the majority of the material off that we don't need for our pencil holder. My guard is way too high. This should be much lower, but if I put it lower, you won't be able to see what I'm doing, so I've raised it up. Keep your guard down close to your stock, guys. All right, so let's get this cut off. And now with that being rough shaped, we're going to clean it up and finish it off here at the belt sander. Before you start sanding, you just want to make sure that your belt is square to your table. If you do want a taper on your cup, you can do that too. Just tilt your table a couple degrees and make sure that you have your cup facing the right way. So let's get this all cleaned up, and I'll show you what we end up with. And once you get it all leveled out, you end up with something that looks like this. That looks great. So the last thing I want to do here is I have a 1/8 round over installed in the router table. I'm just going to place a round over all the way around the bottom edge, and as well around the inside lip here and the outside lip of our cup. And the last thing to do is give this a good sanding all over up to about 220 grit. And when you get it all sanded up, you end up with something that looks just like this. Look at how awesome that is. That is absolutely fantastic. And all that's left to do is add your pencils. And there you have it. A scrap plywood pencil holder or pen holder. Guys, this is a dead simple project, but what a great way to use up useless pieces of scrap. The little pieces of 1/2-inch plywood that I used for this were slated for garbage. They were slated for the trash. What did I use? I used 8 squares of 3 1/4 inch wide, 1/2-inch thick plywood. That's it. That is it. A little bit of glue and a hole saw. That was the entire thing. And the product, the end product, is spectacular. It looks really cool. Now you could do different things with this here. If you wanted to, you could burn the outside to darken the stripes all the way around. You could add a finish if you wanted to. If you wanted to paint it, you could, like what my great-grandfather did. You can do whatever you wished with this product. If you want, just put a coat of varnish on it, whatever you like. It is completely up to you, but it is a wonderful little project. Now, I can already hear those of you out there saying, you know, it's a silly little plywood cup. But I'm pretty sure that my great-grandfather probably thought the same sort of thing when he made this for me almost 50 years ago. So I think he would be very proud of both what I made here today on the show, as well as the fact that what he made is still around and still cherished by someone like me. I guess what the point is of all of this is you really need to try projects like this, if for nothing more than just to have a little bit of fun. Not every project has to be this mind-blowing feat of engineering. A plywood cup is perfectly acceptable. I guess what it really points out is that if my great-grandfather were alive today, I think he would be absolutely shocked that this cup is still around. I really do. When he made it, did he think that this thing would be around half a century later? Absolutely not. But here it is today because somebody cherishes it. So that makes a point of, you know what, guys, regardless of how small the project is, if you got enjoyment out of it, it was worth making. If it had a useful, practical use for it, that makes it worth making. And never, ever, ever underestimate, regardless of how simple or small or rustic or whatever, regardless of any of those factors, never underestimate the importance of a project that you make for somebody else to that person. Because you never know. Half a century from now, your project may be one of their cherished possessions. Guys, I want to thank you so much for tuning in this week. I've been wanting to do this for a long time. Every time I sit at my scroll saw, I look at my great-grandfather's cup there, just up to the left, and I think, man, I got to make one of those one day. And then, out of necessity, I needed a pen holder in my work vehicle, and this thing fit the bill. Now, I didn't add the handle, but that's because this is going to sit in the center cup holder. The handle would have gotten in the way. But if you want to add a cup handle to your cup, then do it. Do it. Make the project your own. And by all means, send me the pictures of what you come up with. I'd love to see it. Guys, if you haven't already, please consider liking and subscribing to the channel. Click the bell and then you won't miss the notifications of future episodes of the show. We've had a lot of fun here today, or at least I have. I hope you've enjoyed the content, guys. I hope you're going to try this for yourself. But more importantly, I hope you're going to join me again next week when I bring you yet another woodworking video.